In this video, I'm challenging myself to replicate yet another recipe from Harry Potter lore. Now this time we're going to be making pumpkin pasties, and I have two criteria for succeeding this challenge. Number one is that this recipe needs to be honest to Harry Potter lore. Number two is that they need to be absolutely delicious. I'm not just putting together any old little pumpkin pie, we're putting a bunch of technique into this. You're going to learn a bunch, it's going to be great. There's quite a lot of cooking to get to, so let's jump straight into it. Okay, so we are going to start everything off with what I would like to call my savory pumpkin spice mix. It's just going to be a spice mix that I'm going to put in and around the dough and maybe add to the filling. I haven't decided yet. So we're going to start off with 1 part cinnamon. There's probably like a leveled off tablespoon if you want to like measure these out exactly. If this comes good, I'll develop this into like a more proper recipe, but today we're just gonna feel. So I've got some cinnamon, I've got some whole nutmeg that I'm going to grate. Call that maybe like 1 teaspoon. Now, that is where all the familiarity of pumpkin spice goes away. I'm gonna add some smoked paprika. Let's call that like 2 teaspoons, 3 teaspoons, which is also a tablespoon. A hint cayenne pepper, so maybe like a teaspoon. Some turmeric. Let's go with maybe like 2 teaspoons. And a little bit of Malta's favorite spice, curry powder medium. We used to be a British colony and they kind of, I don't know why, but this is everywhere in Maltese cooking. 1 tablespoon. So the goal of the spice mix is to add like a really nice flavor, a really nice comforting sort of like warmness from the cinnamon and the nutmeg, and the others are there to, if I'm being honest, help make the pastry orange, but also add like a little bit of zing and heat and life. Ginger, that's what I forgot. This needs ginger. Where was I? Yeah, 1 tablespoon of ground ginger. Pumpkin and ginger go amazingly well together. These all kind of go really well with pumpkin. Okay, now we are going to move on to the pastry. We're going to start off with 500 grams of flour, whole 250 grams of butter. Pro tip, cut butter with a skinny knife. There's like less surface area for your butter, for your knife to go through. Just cut into cubits. I'm going to add all of this. Let's start with like let's call it maybe like a tablespoon of our spice mixture. Next, salt, sugar, 15 grams of each. Let's mix. Actually, wait. I had a vision for this and I forgot the vision. I think pumpkin goes really good with Parmesan. So I want to grate a bunch inside of the dough. Be a little generous, it's fine. That's maybe like 50 grams of Parmesan. You can go slightly more. We're going to give everything a really nice mix. And whilst it's mixing, I'm going to pour in our milk. Okay. So our dough is mostly mixed together. This actually is pretty good. Just going to give it a nice little knead just to bring everything together. But you really don't want to work this too much. Now, we're going to put this in the fridge to chill and to hydrate. A little tip. I made this kind of square. I'm going to be rolling it out into a big square. You want to shape your dough into the shape that you want to roll it out in. It'll make it easier. So you have like a round pie crust, form it into like a round disc. So yeah, just wrap this up in a little bit of cling film. We're just going to put this in the fridge for maybe like an hour, 2 hours. Also work on our filling and let this get nice and cold. Okay, now for our filling. Here I have gone ahead and cubed up plenty of pumpkin, but also some of my secret ingredient, butternut squash. As much as I love pumpkin, and this is like a pumpkin pasty, a pumpkin pie, I think butternut squash has much better, or at least a much firmer texture. They have very overlapping flavors, a lot of similarities. Pumpkin honestly does have a better color, but it tends to break down a lot more whilst it cooks. And I wanted like whole little chunks of orange gourd. So yeah, I've gone ahead and added both. And we are going to cook them in plenty of brown butter. Now what this will do is add this really nice toasty nutty flavor which goes amazingly well with pumpkin, but also it is going to be the base of our sauce. We're going to turn it into a roux and we'll get to that in time. I'm going to go ahead and go in with like what looks like a huge chunk of butter, but it's going to cook down and it is going to be like the base of our sauce. So it's not that bad. Once our butter has completely melted and we are just left with this like nice foamy butter, we're going to go ahead and add, well, we can go ahead and add all of these. Let them sit for a little bit. I don't want to move around too much. I'm going to want to keep the bottom hot and still like browning nicely. But I will go ahead and add a good pinch of salt. While the butter is browning and the pumpkin is cooking, I'm going to add a nice bundle of thyme to the mix. And a nice little bunch of sage. We're going to be fishing these out eventually, but I want these to impart some flavor both in the butter and inside of the pumpkin. Smells super. I'm gonna give everything a mix and just let it do its thing. Okay, so it's been about like 3 minutes. Stuff's starting to get soft. The butter is darkening. I'll probably brown a little bit more butter to fortify that once I take this out. And things smell amazing. That's like the most important part. I just want to add a little, just like a teaspoon, just like to add some of the spice directly to the pumpkin. Also toast off in that butter. As you can maybe see, some of the pumpkin is already breaking down. So that's kind of why I wanted both the butternut and the pumpkin. Okay, this is ready to take out. I don't want to leave some of the butter behind. This already smells like insanely good, like really good. I don't know if I mentioned this, but don't worry, we'll be picking out one of the sage and thyme bits. You can tie them together if you just want to like pull them out as one. We're gonna go ahead and add, you guessed it, last little bit of butter. 2 points. I'm gonna brown the butter with the sage and the thyme. This is gonna be the base of our roux, which is gonna be the thickening agent for our sauce. And what a roux is a combination of a fat and a starch. Usually the starch is some type of flour. And together you cook out that raw taste in the flour and they act as like a nice thickening agent that's reasonably easy to emulsify and mix into other liquids. This is browning quite nicely. Okay. Now this smells really nice and lovely and brown. I'm going to take this off the heat. I'm going to kill the heat actually. I'm going to remove my aromatics. And to this, we're going to add a bunch of flour. Beautiful, foamy butter. About the same amount of flour. So let's get a good little sprinkle. At this point, I'm going to hit it with super low heat and I'm just going to whisk. You just want to whisk your flour and your butter together. You want them to look like thick-ish, almost like a paste. This is looking like a ton of butter with a little bit of flour. Roux as a thickening agent is super useful because it's super easy to put together, but a little too much roux and things can get like a little bit gummy. You might mute the flavor of stuff because there's quite a lot of starch in it. So just be sure to season this well and cook your roux out a little bit just to get rid of that raw taste in the flour. This is looking nice and brown. So we're going to go ahead and add in some of this amazing stock which we made before. Let's cut to how I made that stock before I add this. I added a bunch of pumpkin trimmings, as well as some chopped carrots, some leeks, some onion, some garlic, some ginger, half a chili. You can use whatever you want really here. I drizzled these with some canola oil, any neutral oil will do, and I popped them in the oven until they get nice and roasty and toasty. I went ahead and added these to a pot, along with some parsley, some thyme, and some sage leaves, and topped everything up with water. I popped this on the stove and simmered this for maybe like 40-45 minutes. Oh, there was some cinnamon in there as well. Cinnamon in. Here I'm straining it through a like wider colander. This is just to catch any of the big bits. I shook off every last drop that I could, and then I strained this through 2 strainers to make sure that there's no little bits left over, and to make sure half my day is spent doing dishes. I don't know why, but I actually waited for like a minute in real life while that was happening. But yes, you can see everything bubbling away nicely. So to this, we're gonna go ahead and add that stock that you just saw. Just a little bit at first. This way, if you add a little bit at a time, it is much, much harder to get lumps. Oh, we're already, as you can see, it's already like thickening up super fast. Let's do the same, just a little bit so we don't get lumps, so they're easier to break down. Ooh, you're most thick. Okay, every time we have this back to a paste, we're gonna keep whisking. Ooh, this actually looks really good. You should add this to the butter, let it toast a little bit, but we're gonna go ahead and add a little bit of our spice mix, our savory pumpkin spice. That looks sick, actually. Lovely, that's absolutely lovely. Let's see. It's a lovely, saucy, thick consistency. This is perfect, actually. So yeah, look at that. Look at that. Perfect. Like I said, there's a lot of starch, so you need a lot of salt. Also, this is going to be like quite heavy. It's a lot of like sweet and savory flavors, which are lovely together, but your mouth does tend to get a little bit fatigued. So I'm going to add a tiny splash of lime juice. You could use any other acid, I guess. Well, not any other. You could use like lemon juice, I think would work. White wine vinegar would work. Oh, this is the driest lime ever. Yeah, just like a little squeeze, half a lime, quarter of a lime, just to cut through all that richness. Taste as you go. Oh my god. It's now like explosive in flavor. Okay, we are almost there. Now I'm gonna get my pumpkin butternut squash and put it straight in and pick out any. I thought I got most of them, but there was some hiding. Now let's mix everything together. Oh, this looks beautiful. Okay, everything has come together. Our pumpkin is like half cooked. The sauce is really nice and flavorful and really good thickness. These will continue to cook when they're inside the little pasties. So I'm going to put everything inside of a tray so that it doesn't overcook while I clean my kitchen a little bit. This needs to cool down before we put it in the pies, otherwise it's gonna like soften the dough too much from before. So yeah, we're gonna cool this and move on to the next step. Okay, so we've got our dough fresh out of the fridge. Actually put it in the freezer for a couple more minutes to firm up a little bit. It could be firmer, but it's okay. It's okay. It's good enough for what we need to do. Move it from its plastic wrap prison to points. Okay, now we're just gonna put a little bit of flour down. We're gonna start rolling. Those of you who don't know, this is the cool guy flour throwing thing. You see pastry chefs that like flick a little bit. If you do it right, it's like a nice even spreading. I am bad at it, so follow loosely. But the cool thing that some pastry chefs do. A little bit of flouring, flouring, flouring. Oh, nice kind of looks like cookie dough. We can like fast forward through this or skip through this once I get this done. Mush everything together so the corners aren't weird. The important thing is that you want nice even pressure, and you want this to be like half a centimeter thick to a quarter centimeter thick, not particularly thick, so we're going to fold it over itself. Now that we've rolled it out, we're going to cut nice big circles, or like relatively big circles, because I want these to be nice little hand pastries or pasties. I don't want too big of a pasty. So you just want to push down and turn a little bit just to free it from the pastry, and keep these as nice and close together as possible. You should have everything in frame here. Be able to like lift the pastry and reveal these nice little discs. These are like half a centimeter thick. They could probably be a little thinner, but my dough's also a little soft, so I don't want to mess it too much. Okay, I'm going to roll out the rest of this dough. It'll be a little bit tougher, but waste not, want not. And yeah, come back in a second. Well, I'll be back in a second, and we're going to fill these bad boys up. Okay, so our pastry discs are nice and chilled. We'll leave them for like 10-15 minutes inside the freezer because I just wanted to speed this process along. You can do it in the fridge too. And we are just going to take one of these lovely little discs, and we are going to see how much filling we can shove in the middle of this. We'll get a good little spoonful. Oh, I also added a little bit of parsley to our mixture. Although you can see it very well, but should add a little bit of color. It's going to be a messy boy. Okay, this time just a little bit of flour because stuff sticking is bad. Okay, we have a nice cold disc straight from the freezer. These guys are a little bit thick, and I realized that I want them to be a little bit bigger as far as pasties go. I'm just going to do a little roly-poly, and this is going to be our most beautiful one yet. So we have a nice little oval of dough. We have a good spoonful. Remove the thyme. But yeah, we have a good spoonful of our lovely pumpkin mixture. We have our filling more or less in the middle of our dough. I like having a little offset spatula or a pastry card to make sure nothing is sticking. Can fold this over, and actually, since I put a little bit of flour down, you can add a little bit of water around the outside of the pastry. Also, I would recommend moving the filling with like a spoon or something, not your fingers, because your fingers just get wet and then it makes it more annoying to handle the pastry. Boop, this is a nice full boy. Again, you want to go from the edges inwards. Again, we're just trying to go for a very simple semi-sphere, and then once this is a bit more chilled, we'll jazz it up a little bit, I think, but that is just fine. Okay, so we have pulled our pumpkin pasties out of the fridge. They have cooled down a little bit, so the pastry is going to be a bit easier to work with without me turning it into mush, and we are going to attempt to crimp the edges to the best of my ability, and we're going to hit them with a little bit of egg wash. Now, for a really beautiful golden brown, amazing crust, I would highly recommend 2 brush overs of egg wash. So brush with egg wash once, leave it in the fridge for, let's say, half an hour, and then brush with egg wash again just before you're going to bake. The egg wash tends to like dry out and become like nice and tacky and sticky to the top of the pie or whatever you're making, and looks amazing. Okay, let's attempt a crimping. Take this guy, and we're just going to do a little crimpage. Can you see this in the camera? A little crimpage, little crimpage, little crimpage. I'm kind of like pushing my thumb up into this thing. It looks pretty good. It's like a little gyoza-ish situation. Pumpkinish. They look pumpkinish. Very good, if not a little leaky. A little pinch, little pinch, little pinch, little pinch, little pinch, little pinch, little pinch. Now here I have got some egg wash, which is 2 egg yolks, a little bit of egg white, so let's call it an egg and 1 egg yolk, and a pinch of salt. You can use 2 egg yolks, a tiny splash of milk, and a pinch of salt. Also, something which I really like to do with the egg whites, which I've saved in the fridge, is you can either add a little bit of sugar, whip them together, and make this really amazing meringue. Or what I prefer doing is to forget about them in the fridge for about a month, find them at the point when they smell, and egg whites take a hot minute to go off, and then I throw them out. Okay, but on a serious note, egg wash. With a good liberal dousing of egg wash. You want to go underneath-ish. And we're going to do 1 coat each, and then in about 20 minutes after these have refrigerated a little bit, we'll do another nice little coat. And then I'm going to show you a little something to make them look a little less questionable, given my pastry technique. Okay. Okay, so our pasties are out of the fridge, well, out of the freezer because I'm an impatient young man. As you can see, there's like a really nice tackiness to the top of the pies. We're just gonna go in with a second layer for even more browning goodness. Not gonna lie, our crimping looks a little mid, a little rustic, shall we call it, but I promise you the flavor will be exceptional. Beautiful. Okay, now finishing touches. I want these to kind of-ish look like pumpkins, so what I'm going to do... Where did I put my... Oh, it's right here. So, here I have a little ring mold, and what I'm going to do, if you can see in this little camera, is attempt do a little semicircular indentation. So we added these little semicircles to add like the core of the pumpkin effect. You'll see what I mean in a moment. We're going to take the back of a knife, not the sharp part. We're just going to run this from the outside, from the middle to the outside. I want this to kind of look pumpkin-ish. Block your light, of course. Yeah, so from the middle, just gonna go boosh, 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 boosh. Probably do need a little steam hole, so I'm just gonna poke in the that little middle that we had. Boop. Beautiful. Okay, so last but not least, once we've done all of this, I'm going to take a little bit of finishing salt. And now what this is going to do is add like a nice, crunchy, salty topping. You can leave them like quite large flakes if you want, and they stay a little whole. I just like it, adds a little pop of saltiness. The pumpkin's quite sweet, so I think I could take it. At this stage, I've also seen people add sesame seeds. You can add little picked pieces of thyme leaves or other like hardy herbs, but be careful because those tend to burn in my experience. Boop, 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 boop. So here we have our nice, ready for the oven little pumpkin boys. Something to keep in mind for the best definition in the shape of whatever you're baking, that's a pie. If the pastry is as cold as possible before it goes into the oven, then it's gonna hold that shape better. If it's a little bit more room temperature, it's gonna like soften and you just lose your definition. Something to keep in mind. To the oven. Okay, so our pumpkin pasties are out of the oven and we have some good news and some bad news. Good news, the tops are beautifully brown, they smell exceptional. I am super, super excited to dig into these and see what lies beneath, but there were some mistakes made. I should have vented the tops a lot better because some of the liquidy sauciness from the inside just like came jutting straight out. So that was not the best. I might either go for like slightly thicker pastry for using such a liquidy filling or make better vents, because some of the ones I made just weren't enough. Like I put like a little slit next to the top and that, yeah, this wasn't enough. And honestly, that so far at this stage, those are the only two big mistakes. Obviously, because we did have some like spurt out some whatever, there was some liquid at the bottom. Not all of them have like a nice bottom, but some of them have browned up quite relatively nicely, which is pretty good. Some of them are, is this one like one of the, yeah. Yeah, that's a little spoiler of what the filling looks like, but we're not gonna look at that one. But yeah, I think the only thing that's left is to get a nice taste and see what we're working with. Let's try. Well, the top pastry is like lovely, flaky, and nice. Although this is a pasty. This is a pasty. I'm meant to be eating it with my hands. So okay, that's the middle. It actually looks quite delicious. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, you should. One of you should. This looks quite delicious. Oh, it burns so good. Okay, so now that my mouth has recovered slightly from the third-degree burns, what can I say about this? The pastry, absolutely delicious. You get a little bit of that light spice. You get barely any cheese. It was kind of like not worth it. Or at the very least, you don't really tell that it's there. So either go up on the cheese or just don't add cheese at all. The double egg wash came really nice. The pastry is absolutely amazing. The filling is actually pretty great. The only thing I might say is that I would chop up the butternut squash and the pumpkin a little bit smaller, just because I can fit a little bit more filling more comfortably. I cannot explain how good that sauce is. You get a really nice flavor of the pumpkin. It's like super tender. It just like breaks down really well, but you still get like those nice little chunks in there. So good. All of the spices, you don't get any heat at all. And the ginger, whatever, it's just like this nice, subtle, complementary depth that really goes with the pumpkin, really goes with the pastry. On those brown bits, I got a little flavor of cheese on the pastry. That was actually, okay, let's get a bit more concise. Genuinely, super, super impressed with what we've managed to accomplish today, considering this was our first time at the recipe. The fact that we did have a couple punctures inside of the thing was a little bit disappointing, and I could definitely work to make these a lot more pretty. Having said that, phenomenal start to developing a new recipe. Also, welcome to the insight of developing recipes. If you guys would actually like a recipe for this and what I mentioned wasn't enough to follow along, leave me a comment and I would love to develop this recipe and leave like a nice, full, juicy recipe for you guys to follow. And if you like this kind of content, both replicating Harry Potter recipes and me trying to recipe test on camera, I actually released a similar video where I tried to make 3 of my favorite cool sounding drinks for Harry Potter. There was fire whiskey, there was pumpkin juice, and there was butterbeer. That was a ton of fun to make. If you enjoyed this video, please go check that out. Feel free to leave a like or a subscribe or whatever, no stress. But thanks and have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day. It's so good when it doesn't burn your mouth.